Hey, welcome back to the Evolution with Mac and Jenn podcast. We are so excited to be here today. We got something really exciting to talk about. Mac is going to share our topic for the day. Right, Mac?
Yep. So, welcome back. So, today we're going to talk about the three critical shifts that make you irresistible to your partner.
Ooh.
This is mainly designed, like this question is for Jen, and obviously there are typically a lot more than just three, but we kind of looked at it and said, okay, well, what are the three things that if there were three things that were super important that we could get people to focus on it. And yes, this does make a difference between male or female, but it works with both. You just kind of read between the lines a little bit, but we're going to speak a little more towards the female perspective that says, hey ladies, we know you want more passion. We know you want that perfect guy or to fix wherever you're at. And these are three things that you have to consistently remember, that one, if you're not doing them or doing them wrong, that it's a critical shift, that when you make this shift, it will open things up massively. These things, when you begin to implement them, it begins to make you irresistible to the man. It's a ability to be more feminine, to fire his masculine, so that there's more of that passion and drive and the incredible stuff that's kind of actually natural for us to do. And it's like magic when you start to get it right, and all of a sudden your man or the man you meet begins to show up in a way where you're like, oh my gosh, he's amazing. And often you don't even realize that you're the one inspiring it. So we're going to talk about these three things. We're just going to give you some gold here and lay it out in front of you. It's like, which do you want? Do you want gold, platinum, or diamonds? And we're going to give you all three. So we're going to have some fun with it. We're going to talk about it and see, just try to do our best to inform a few things, make you think different and see different, and then also why you would do that type of thing. So, Jen, if I just ask you, first starting off, what would be the top thing where you would say, you know what you have to stop doing and start doing is what?
Well, I really want to say what the number one is, but I also want to say something else really quick. Is that okay?
Okay, yes, perfect.
I just really always say this, and I kind of want to not hammer it down, but really make it clear that I truly believe that the energy that we bring is the energy that we get. And why I am so excited to talk about this topic is because oftentimes we are so quick to blame the other person for the way things are going in the relationship, or we give people all the power and say, well, if they stop doing this or if they start doing this, or we give them all their power. And so by taking what we're going to talk about here today and recognizing that when we shift, it does inspire them to shift, which actually gives us back our own power. Like we take our power back and realize that we actually have more control than we think. And so it is so true that the people that we coach and talk to all the time, it's like once they start shifting, everything in their life starts to shift. And it's not because other people are shifting, it's because when we shift, people respond. And so that's how we get our power back. And so when you ask me, what's the number one thing? Because Mac, you asked me what three things were, three critical shifts we can make that will start to shift everything, right? And
Mhm.
the first thing I said is number one, we must stop judging.
Yep. And why? So um, that's a kind of a loaded statement. It's got to be broke down a little bit. What does stop judging mean in a way that's going to make sense for somebody that maybe is starting to understand it, starting to look at things differently, and starting to say, okay, something's got to give. I don't know what, I don't know how, but I'm not going to keep living the life of this miserable, like whatever is happening. I'm unhappy. I just want to be happy. I understand that if something's going to change, that I've got to change so that it can. And you say, well, stop judging. It's like, what does that mean? Like what?
Yeah, well, what it means is that it basically means that what we do is we look at our partners and we start to get very critical of them and the things that they do and how they show up, and we judge them because because they don't do things how we would do things. And when we judge them, that's when we get critical. And so when you stop judging, you basically realize that like we do think we my way isn't always the perfect way, even though I think it is. Their way is also a good way too. And so what happens when I say stop judging, I mean stop thinking that your partner is doing everything wrong because they're not doing it the way you think it should be done. An
Yeah,
example of that is, and I talked about this in a past podcast, was like sometimes it's so simple as just loading the dishwasher. It's like I load it one way and my partner, he loads it a different way. And because he's loading it in a way that I wouldn't do it, then I start to get criticized and get critical and I judge him for not doing it the way I would do it. And so I may say, I might be a little remark here and there. I might just rearrange the dishwasher. But as soon as like when we're judging our partner, um, it doesn't feel good. Another example is like this. It's a bigger one is like the kids. And so we like when you're parenting, a lot of times I see couples fighting because men and women parent differently, right? Or you and your partner just might parent differently. And so we judge them for not doing it the way we would do it, thinking their way is the wrong way. And so we get very critical of like their parenting. And so in the book, we're reading a book together in our group. And right now she says that one of the things we do is we judge and we compare our partner to a version of a perfect woman. And so when we look at our partners, we unconsciously compare them to this version of a perfect woman who we think they should be showing up as, and they don't. So we judge them. Like when you're driving, Mac, and like you don't drive the way that I drive, but and I could judge the heck out of you for the way that you drive, but I just choose to just decide that like just because you drive differently than I drive doesn't mean the way that you drive is wrong. And we get caught up in so much judgment with our partners that it reflects in how we show up with them, how we criticize them, how we try to control them and change them. And that is detrimental to literally any relationship. So we must stop judging our partners and start seeing them as fully capable humans.
yeah. I mean, the reality is our driving styles couldn't be more opposite, right? It's like, but if you tried to drive like me, it would be dangerous. If I drove like you, I would go crazy. I'm just playing. But, you know,
Yeah.
you brought up a point that I hear, and I hear often, and the it's just it is a real challenge, and that's the one with kids. Whether it's a married couple or a separated couple, people get all up in arms over, oh, he shouldn't do this or she shouldn't do that or she should support me or blah blah blah. And typically, I'll tell you, it's 90% of the time what I hear, the woman getting all worked up over the way the man is doing discipline or doing certain things and freaking out. Usually, if a man has a problem, it's usually more like after a divorce. And then she's doing things to disrupt, or he's worried about her doing something. And that's usually where it starts to balance out, like half 50-50 on each side, where she's worried, he's worried, but he's worried more about the safety for the kids, she's worried more about what she looks like as a mother. And it's like, honestly, let me just tell you a little secret. You don't have any control. Why are you getting worked up over something that you have zero control over? And if you try to control it, all you're going to do is damage the relationship and your kids. Let them do them. You be you, because when you pull back, and keep in mind, I'm not talking about things that are like really bad. You know, if somebody's doing drugs in the house, or there's absolute evidence of some massive danger, then I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about these general things where women or men will begin to think that they're, I've even seen people think that there is abuse, and then they turn it in mentally to there must be abuse, because they start listening to the child instead of acting like an adult and saying, is that true? Investigating, talking to the other parent like an adult. Hey, so and so is saying this. What's the truth? I don't need to agree with how you raise them. I just need to know, is this escalating or is this a problem? And just calming down and saying, you know what? God gave me a child. God gave me stewardship over a child. They're not mine anyway. They're just on loan. Okay. So I'm going to do my best, and they're supposed to do their best. And for whatever reason, we're in this situation, and I'm just going to kind of trust God and do the best I can, knowing I'm not going to be perfect. And when it comes to not judging, one of the ways I look at it, if I begin to judge other people too much, the fastest way to put myself back in my shoes is to look at how messed up I am. Say, what if I judged me from that perspective? Right? I'm not perfect. And until I am, I shouldn't be looking at this like they need to do it perfect. Typically, being a perfectionist, a man, there are things that I naturally judge and assess and look at. But when it comes down to it, for example, how you raise Cameron, I'm like, okay, that's it's not a big deal to me. You want to do something? Great. I'm going to do what I do. You allow me the space to do it, even though sometimes I come in very aggressive. But those few moments, you trust that I have the best intention for him, and it works. Now, some parents aren't going to think this person has the best intention, or this person has the best intention, or whatever. But the idea is that you just stop judging, that you let it go, and you go, what's mine is mine and what's theirs is theirs. I don't need to change them. It's fine.
Well, one of the things I do is I just trust that everybody has pure intention.
Mhm.
And
And
this shift in stop judging is literally how I have created such an amazing relationship, I believe, with my ex-husband. Because when him and I were married, I used to judge the heck out of him. Like, I judged him so much. Like, that poor man probably couldn't do anything right around me. He could not win with me. And I judged him, I criticized him, and I tried to control him. And in the moment, it felt good because it was like, it was just like I win. But long term, like I was so unhappy because I felt so alone, and nobody really wants to no woman really wants to be in control, if we're super honest. Like we want to be in a relationship with a man who has control and that we can feel safe enough to submit to, truly. If you get really honest, like that is what you want. But with my ex-husband, because I criticized him, and I judged him so much. When we got divorced, I really had to. I said to myself, I want a better co-parenting relationship with him than we have marriage. One of the things I had to do was clean my lens and get rid of the judgment energy. And the reason I had to do that was so I could show up differently with him. So for example, like when it comes to parenting, I judge the way he parents our son because it's not the way that I would do it. And so a lot of times I hear him um, criticize Cameron. And to me, like my judgment says that's really mean. You shouldn't do that. Like you're a dick, you're an asshole. Like that's what the judgment says. And when I feel that way, when I create that story, I show up with a certain energy that is not nice, which is why, and it creates conflict, right? Like I get upset with that and that energy, that judgment energy. But once I just realize that like intention is pure and, he, his way of helping our son become better is through criticism. And even though I don't like it, it's the way that he is and the way he does it. And I know that my ex-husband now is doing the best he can with what he knows. And I'm just letting it go and trusting that he's on a journey. My son is on a journey. They'll learn what they need to learn. I've let go of the judgment of the way my ex-husband shows up with our son, but I just do my best to remind our son, to remind Cameron, that his dad's intention is good and that he really loves you, and I keep that, like, I think that's the feminine in me, like they say, feminine energy, um, likes to remind people, like children, of intentions. And so I do that. And I do know I do that. And so, he loves you. His intention is good. But so now that I show up, like the energy is like I stopped judging him and I stopped seeing him for, like his intention is good. And maybe he does have a reason why he does the things he does. And just because it's not my way doesn't mean it's necessarily the wrong way. Right? Same
Yep.
thing with you, Mac. Like the way that you show up with Cameron, like, you are a little bit tougher with him than I am, but like it doesn't mean that your way is the wrong way. It means that like I just let it go and trust that your intention is good. And I know that it is. And I trust that everything's going to work out the way that it's supposed to in the end, as long as we're all doing our best. And we're all doing our best. So if you can shift your energy and stop judging how others are showing up and like, jump into like the number two. Should we jump into number two?
Yeah, yeah. I wanted to just kind of give a couple little, if you're doing this, it's going to lead to a problem, right? So the the letting go of judgment is, and judgment looks like this when you try to control the outcome of a situation. I don't like this, so I'm going to do something to force it to happen my way. It looks like mothering, like when you're over, like what are you doing? What's this? What's that? That's mothering. These things are for a male, they're disrespectful. So you kill his masculine energy. He's
Yes.
like,
So
all right,
if you're
check out.
judging and you're mothering and criticizing, that is the surefire way to repel any man from wanting to cherish you.
Yeah, and it can be very simple and subtle as far as like, well, why don't you do this, or what about this, or you should, or in any of those types of things. From a woman's perspective, that what you want to remember is guys are problem solvers. So if there is a problem, if you try to fix his problem for him, you are making him feel like, I don't like you. Like, why? What are you doing? Like, you're disrespecting me. Like, I'll figure it out. It's natural for me to figure it out. What are you doing? He may not be figuring it out because he may not know there's a problem all the time with where you stand. And there's ways to deal with that part. That's not what we're talking about. It's, you have to begin to figure out how you're judging, when you're mothering, when you're trying to change something or trying to get an outcome. So there's like three indicators inside of this that say mothering, trying to control, or trying to get an outcome. That's those all three require a judgment, and that judgment will kill the masculine energy, and it will put you into a space of resentment or devaluing him, and pretty soon you'll just be like, I don't respect him, and then it becomes this divorce situation where this person's going that way, this person's going that way, because they both are completely unconnected to the feminine or the masculine that's truly in them that needs to come out. So when it comes to the critical shift that will make you irresistible, if you are judging, you are resistible. Okay. So, like, no, thank you. I would not choose this if I was free and everything's good and I'm looking for someone. I'm not choosing a judger, period. Not going to do it.
Another thing that we judge, that I hear a lot of is the way that the other person communicates.
Mm.
Like, well, he sucks at communicating, or, she's crazy. That's how we judge each other on that level, forgetting that we are literally two different like species in that department,
Yep.
you know.
So, and nobody's perfect at this. It's the idea that you put in the fundamental practice of being the best at not judging,
And we
right?
talk a lot about like that on so many podcasts. I feel like just the fact that like we do communicate so differently,
Yep.
you
So
know? Yeah.
perfect. So that one has to do with stop, stop doing this, and it kind of sits in its own little department.
Number one, stop judging.
What's that?
I said, number one, stop judging.
Everyone's stop judging. So
Yeah.
the next thing, number two, is more of a start doing or becoming, right?
Mhm.
And that is,
To become an expert at understanding.
so become an expert in understanding. Now we've got stop judging and then start understanding. They're kind of related
They
heavily.
go hand in hand, I think, because in order to stop judging, you have to start seeking to understand your partner.
And can you maybe give an example of what that looks like?
Well, what that looks like is like when I decided to stop judging my ex-husband, I had to seek to understand why he was doing the things that he was doing, and seeking to look for like the truth and letting go of my stories around, like, oh, letting go of my judgments and the stories and seeking to understand the truth, become an expert at understanding the truth. Is my ex-husband an asshole? No. Are his intentions pure? Yes, that is the truth. And when I can see him through that lens, I can be much nicer to him and show up with an energy of through love and understanding,
Mm.
right? Does that
Yeah,
make
it's an interesting thing because I've heard a similar story like that many times from multiple people, men and women, and I've asked them the question of, well, when they're not around you, like, oh, my husband's an asshole, my wife's a bitch, whatever. Yeah, okay, well, when they're not around you, are they generally friendly people? Do people like them? Do they get along? Or are they just a perpetual dick, to everybody? Which is it? And they're like, well, no, they treat everybody else really good, and they do this and do that, and blah blah, but they treat me bad. It's like this. I'm like, well, you know what the common denominator is, right? You.
sense?
And it's like, well, what's that supposed to mean? I said, well, you're inflating the situation, and when you're removed, he's generally a nice person, to give or take. I mean, yeah, there's probably people he doesn't like or whatever, So how are you causing this to actually happen? Well, I don't know. Well, let's work on this. Stop judging, start doing this, start understanding. And a lot of times I believe, actually it's not even a belief, it's an investigation that I got to get women to see sometimes, is a lot of the judgment comes from self-reflection, right? And we'll talk about that next. But the if you're judging yourself a lot, then you typically judge someone else a lot, right? So this is why I usually reflect in. Oh, if I'm judging somebody, I think they need to do something different. Are you perfect? Then you cast the first stone, right? Like shut up. And but when for me, and I'm a guy, so I might be speaking out of turn, but I actually learned this more in sales, trying to figure out how to make sales than I did anywhere else, and that was to love everybody and to be understanding. And so I got really curious, and the more curious I got, the better I got at putting myself in someone else's shoes and having empathy and having understanding. And when I truly understood where someone was, I quit talking because I wasn't going to change them, because I could feel what they felt. I knew the struggle they were in, and I knew why they were doing what they were doing. And it wasn't to be an asshole or a bitch or whatever. It was genuinely a struggle that they're having, that maybe they have a fear, um, whatever. And really, if it doesn't make sense, it just means I don't understand them enough. Because once I fully understand someone, I don't judge them. I slow down. It's simple, and it's okay.
Hmm. We create a lot of like stories in our head around what certain things mean.
Mhm.
And rather than taking your stories on as truth, just ask your man, like you said this. What does that actually mean? Because my brain says this, but like what I'm just unsure. Can you like explain? Like seek never think like seek to understand what the truth is. This doesn't always mean that, right? And I get caught up in my own story sometimes, but like I know what's happening. But as soon as, Mac when we start talking about it, like um because what happens is when we create stories, there's a lot of uncertainty going on inside of us. And so just seek to understand, seek to get some certainty so you can let go of those stories and know the truth.
Yeah. And don't, one thing I suggest, don't go get answers or understanding from someone else that doesn't have at least a twice as good relationship as you.
Well, the
Because,
problem is like we always seek truth. We might go seek quote unquote truth from outside sources, like other people. Well, what do you think this means? And what do you think this means? And what should I do? And he did this, and we seek truth from outside. And what happens is you're getting quote unquote truth from people full of judgments, their
yeah,
own judgments.
and they probably don't even have the results that you want anyway.
Right. And so, their own judgments, well, all men are assholes anyways. Well, you should just dump him. Right. That's their advice. You should just dump him. He is an asshole. Like he shouldn't be doing it like that. Right. And they will project their truth based off of their own judgments. And it's like, if you want results like them, fine. But if you want something different, like do things different. you know Sometimes women will come to me with questions or uncertainty around what their men are quote unquote doing, and I'm just like, you need to go talk to him. Ask him, go get the certainty that you're seeking from your man, and he will tell you, but seeking everybody else's opinions and trying to formulate your own truth and story is not going to get you where you ultimately want to go and to ultimately have the type of relationship that you want, because what you're seeking is some certainty. And by not getting it, you're keeping yourself in a state of like you're keeping you're not, your nervous system isn't going to be settled until you actually have the conversation with your man and say, what does this actually mean? Or this is how I'm feeling. Um, I'm not sure what to do.
Yeah,
And
and
let
there's
him help you solve the problem.
yeah, and there is a very specific way on how to communicate with your man or a man to get exactly what you're looking for that safety, certainty, and everything else. And when it's done correctly, it's like the most beautiful thing, easy, you feel safe, everything. But it does put you in a place of being vulnerable, a little unsafe feeling, those types of things. And it's just a little bit of a challenge that you have to work through because honestly, what you think something means as a woman, it does not mean what a man's thinking. That's completely different. That is the polarity or the polar opposite of each other. And that's why we come together so beautifully because we are different. And that's why you don't judge that. You see the beauty in the difference. And that is what creates passion, that is what fires this amazing feminine thing that draws the masculine in to be the provider, protector, and everything, and love and cherish the woman.
Yes,
So
our differences that create the polarity and passion. And so we need to stop judging our differences and start appreciating and loving them. And that goes both ways.
yep,
I hear men say, well, she's crazy. Yeah, but that crazy is fun, can be fun if you let it, right? But when you stop judging it, it gives her a sense of certainty and safety. And, she'll actually probably be less crazy once you stop judging her crazy, just allowing her to be herself and giving her a safe space to like be that crazy, fiery woman that you actually want. If she wasn't that way, you'd be bored,
yeah, and
right?
I always tell guys, I'm like, well, you'd have to be a little crazy to love something like a little child that's going to crap and pee on you and probably cuss you out at some point in your life and everything else, and you just always love and take care of this little thing that is genuinely protecting your bloodline. And she loves that thing that is a complete challenge, a mess, everything else. That's crazy to me from a male perspective. So I appreciate the shit out of that. Okay. So it's like very, very important, but that, little off topic, but I, I honor and respect the differences. I don't want you, my wife, to be rigid or aggressive like me. I want you to be cute and fun and loving and soft and the almost like the opposite of me because that's what makes me happy and feel like it feels good. And it's very easy for us to get caught up. Well, maybe I should do it this way. Maybe I should do it that way. No, no, no. Are you happy? Are you fulfilled? Do you feel good? That's who I want you to be. And the more we understand that without our judgments or without our, well, you should do it this way or you should do that, doesn't stop me from thinking like, oh, um, you should sweep the sidewalk this way. I mean, I might still have that thought, but I don't know why you would be sweeping the sidewalk anyway, because I just do it. But it just, it's like, but if you want to do it, I'm probably going to give you some feedback, but that's just me being a guy. But it's not really a judgment. It's just an observation or whatever. But there's still that challenge. Like, well, am I right? Am I wrong? And it's like, no, no, no. Don't judge. Just be understanding. It's okay. Everything's good. Zoom out.
Yes, like
Really not a big deal.
seek to understand, become an expert at seeking to understand our differences and how you can love and appreciate them.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to number three.
And to share the topic again, this is to make a
The three critical shifts that will make you irresistible to the right guy. Or
yes, okay. So number three is to keep your cup full,
mhm.
your energy cup full, because like I said, what,
keep
honey?
your keep your cup full. Right. What does that mean for you?
It means that I feel like we have to keep our cups full because so we can show up for other people at our best.
What's one thing that you like, just this has to like I have to do this or else?
Like as far as keeping like
Yeah,
as
keeping your cup full.
keep my cup full, getting enough rest.
Okay, so sleep. If
Hmm.
you're not getting enough sleep, cup's not going to be full. You know what happens after that.
Yeah. The reason we need to keep our cup full is I always say that there is nothing more important than your energy management,
Mhm.
right? If you are not protecting your energy, and you are, because especially as women and mothers and wives, like we are constantly giving, giving, and giving, and giving, giving, and giving, and giving to everybody else, right? We forget to keep ourselves, we forget to give to ourselves. And so a lot of us are running on almost on empty. And the minute our man comes in and does one little thing that we judge and don't appreciate, we will blow up. Because it's like, because the more you give, it's almost like a volcano that builds inside of us. And it's like we give, we give, we give, we give. You ask me for one thing after I've been giving all day, and now I'm going to explode and it's going to be on you. And so we have to make sure that we protect our energy and keep ourselves full so we can give ourselves the best that we can, um and the best that we can. And a lot, and that also starts with just like having some boundaries.
Yeah.
Boundaries with the kids, boundaries with like your self-care, and boundaries with just making sure that you're taking care of yourself. So when it comes time for you to show up for your husband and show up for your kids, you're full and you're giving and you're ready. And like you're not giving from empty, you're giving from overflow at that point. And people appreciate that. People appreciate more a woman who has like boundaries with her energy. People appreciate a woman who values her self-care and self-worth, who has boundaries, that takes time, like that pulls away to take care of herself. People value that more than somebody who's there constantly giving from an empty place.
Yeah, and let me reinforce that from like the male perspective, because I know this is still a challenge even with like you're really good at managing your energy, but when you watch me go 16 hours a day nonstop and everything else, you start to feel like you need to do more. Like oh my, what's going on? Do I need to do more? Like he's doing so much, and it's almost like there's this natural caretaking woman side that says like, well, he's doing all this stuff, I need to take care of him, like I need to help, I like this impulse thing that begins to happen. And I'm always like, no, don't, because my crazy ass life and day is at peace when I'm done and there's still a smile on your face. That's all I need,
Part
because
of me feels like I need, like, I want to protect your energy too.
yeah, because I'll go crazy, whatever. But that's me being a guy, right? Like
I know.
hunter, gatherer, go
But I
crazy,
think it's natural as a woman to want to protect everybody's energy,
caretake.
right? And that this is just where like we even have to let go of that.
Yep.
Like thinking that like you're supposed to be like me, and like my judgment is like you're doing so much. And I feel like if it were me, and so I'm comparing you to,
Yeah.
and it's like forgetting that like no, you're a man and this is actually like, you've got it in you. You've got it more than I do.
I still have to manage my energy at some point, where if I go too much, I'll start to get snappy because I just don't have any energy left. So if somebody's doing something that's taking, like, I don't have the space for it, and you disrupt what's in my mind, I'm going to get pissed. And so I still have to manage my energy, but it's much different, the way I can run and go versus how a woman needs to be that loving, peaceful, and everything. And so I've seen a lot of women get almost like comparative. to go, well, I'm doing all this stuff for you. I'm working my butt off. I'm doing all this stuff and everything else. I'm like, and then there's this other woman over here that's like, nope, I'm not going to do that. This is what I'm going to do. She manages her energy. She knows who she is, and she does a fraction, an eighth, a quarter of what this other woman does working her butt off. And the other woman is far more attractive to every man, and it's like, wake up. Men don't need you to do stuff. In fact, the more you do, the less you're taking away from his ability to provide. And so,
Well, I think that goes along too the lines of like stop judging yourself.
yeah, exactly.
Thinking
So,
we need to be a certain way and expect a certain outcome.
yep. So there's the boundaries, which you have a woman's course that goes through all these things in one of the whole training on just boundaries, right?
Because
She,
it's important. It's that important.
yeah, it's like how to say no so you can say yes, right? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, because if you're not saying no and figuring it out and asking your man, do you actually want me to do this? Like you ask me quite often, do you want me to do this? No, I don't. Yes, I do. Like different things. So then you're not guessing and just doing it and exhausting yourself because you don't need to. Like you can be led, but being feminine is how you get led. And so I don't want to go into too much further or anything else, but the idea of this conversation of asking the questions, hey, these are three things that are critical. And if you don't think you can do them, well, you're just not going to be irresistible. So change, start thinking like, I want to be irresistible. I want my man to show up with passion, to love me, to cherish me, to keep me safe, to provide for me. Or I want to find this guy, this knight in shining armor, or whatever it is, that can do all this stuff for you. Like these are three major things, and they're also all inside your course that you've done training on, and people can get access to that in each individual step, and then also get access to some more continuing live education. And so I would encourage anybody that's curious on like, well, okay, it makes sense. How do I do it? Well, plug in, get in the system, join our membership, reach out to Jen on Messenger and start a conversation saying, okay, you've piqued my interest. I don't know how to stop judging him, or I want to know how to do this more. And we can get you plugged into the training, to the system, or whatever it is. But you have to stop judging. You have to start becoming understanding, and you have to start doing the things that are for you. Right. So stop, start, do. Pretty simple, three major steps, critical to being irresistible to that
And
guy.
it's really not just about becoming irresistible to the guy. When you make these shifts, you become irresistible to like everything. Like it changes how you show up in the world, and everything responds to you differently when you're projecting an energy of love.
And you feel a heck of a lot better.
You feel good. You feel good. And like you literally become a magnet to not just the guy, but to, everybody, because everybody wants to be in the energy of a woman who is non-judging, who's understanding, and who is taking care of herself.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So awesome. Anything
Okay.
else?
I don't think so.
Okay. Then we'll leave it at that, and hope to see you inside our membership. And if you have any questions, like I said, reach out. All right, guys. Have a
Goodbye. Oh, let me figure out how to